So we're continuing in Likutei Moharan, Tinyana Beis, and we've been talking about the idea of halacha, toda, thanksgiving, and a place of chesed, the intersection between the three. So let's jump right in. K'shezaychim lebchinas toda halacha, so when a person reaches the point of acknowledging toda in halacha, of acknowledging thanks in halacha, ayedeza niskala or ha'emes umeir b'hadibor, and then that goes and awakens a way to have niskala. It reveals the or ha'emes, the true light, in our dibor, in the way we speak. Ki mitchila k'shahadamim shoytfim el halev hu b'chinas pgam ha'emes. And as we've said in the beginning, when someone is dealing with something, and we said, talking about hagomel, talking about when someone's going through some form of a trouble. When they're going through a trouble, what happens? It says all the blood rushes up to the heart. And in that place, you're not really sure what's up, what's down, it's just so much emotion, so many feelings. There's a pgam, there's a deficiency in MS at that point. Why is there a deficiency in MS? Because you're just kulo emotion. You're just fully emotionally charged at that moment. So anshe damim, bloodthirsty men despise the innocent. What does that mean? It means that when you're in a place of all this blood rushing, you don't necessarily have the ability to think clearly. You're in this adrenaline rush. But then when you're overcoming this struggle, like we said, when you're saying Birkas HaGomel, when you go through one of those items that we've mentioned, Shezeh B'chinas Toda Halacha, that's when we experience Toda Halacha. That's when we experience thanks on the path that we realize, the path that Hashem is putting us on. Azi Meir Ha'emes, and then it reveals the truth. B'chinas Titan Emes LeYaakov, Chesed LaAvraham. So every one of the avos represents a different midah. So Yaakov was the midah of Emes, and Avraham is the midah of Chesed, kindness. Chesed LaAvraham, Hainu Halachos. We said, what was Chesed? Chesed was halachas. Why is chesed halacha again? Because it teaches us right and wrong. The greatest chesed we could have, the greatest chesed that Hashem could give us, is to teach us how to live our life. And so through this, your meir, we awaken the emes, and mashlim dibor, and have the ability to have speech in the proper way. The ikar shleimus hadibor, ayedei emes. To speak properly is only through emes. Ki kushta kai. What does that mean? Ki kushta kai? Because the truth stands. Va'afilu sheker ein lo kiyum rak al yedei emes. And sheker can only exist when there's emes. Meaning, we're going to give a few examples of this, but one of them was the meraglim, was the spies. For the spies to go ahead and say the negative things they said, which weren't entirely true, it had to be based off of a kernel of truth. A believable lie is always based off of some truth, and then it becomes an exaggerated truth. So it happened by the meraglim, by the spies. Now, if you look at the letters of emes, each one has raglayim. It says, emes yesh raglayim l'davar. It can stand. Why can it stand? Because look at the actual letters. It's as if they have 2 feet. They stand, they're sturdy, they're strong. But when it comes to sheker, everything is one leg. Why? It's going to topple over. At the end of the day, it's like a machlokas. Machlokas l'shem shemayim, right? Versus a machlokas not l'shem shemayim. But whenever you have a group of people who are doing things not for an emistic reason, it says in this week's parsha where it says ki ish echad b'leiv echad, with receiving the Torah, it's going to stand forever. The Torah is with us forever. The Torah doesn't leave us. Why? Because we were ki ish echad b'leiv echad. But it says about Paro, what was Paro and his crew? B'leiv echad ki ish echad. Says, you think what, they had achdus? It says the opposite. They had a shared common goal for a temporary amount of time. So they were united, but they weren't actually united. When we're united in a way that transcends a particular goal that we have, that is true unity that lasts. What are we united on? Paraklamet Beis, Tanya, we're united on that we're achema. But when you have an achdus like Paro's achdus, which was we share a temporary common goal, so we serve each other's purpose right now, that's an achdus that doesn't end in anything positive. And that's a sheker. That's a sheker. It has one leg, it will topple. Emes means it's based on something foundational. What's the most foundational thing that we have based on? Is our connection to Hashem, which is literally the foundation of who we are. Okay. Nimtza she'ikar kiyamu shleimus hadibor hu hayedei ha'emes. So when do you have shleimus hadibor? When do you perfect speech? Is only through emes. Shehu meir bahadibor hayedei shlosha shemos. So we're going to see that is expressed through dibor, through 3 names of Hashem. What are these names? B'bchinas Kel, the name Kel, the name Elokim, and the name Hashem, the name Havaya. Diber. So the pasuk in Tehillim says, Kel Elokim Hashem Diber. It uses all 3 names. It uses 3 of these names for Hashem, and then it says, and he spoke. So why to say these 3 names? Saying the epitome of speech. It's not just that Hashem spoke. The epitome of speech exists. Dibor exists within these 3 names. Now, what does that mean? These 3 names are the makor, are the source of truth, are the source of emes. And when we say emes, we don't just mean saying something that is factually correct versus factually incorrect. We say emes, we mean to live life and to use speech of someone who is dairesh emes, of someone who is looking for truth, who's looking not just to say things that are accurate, but to look for truth. That's what emes is. You say, Titein emes liYaakov. Yaakov's midas emes. Iferes. That just means he didn't tell lies. It means much more than that. It means he was yearning and searching for emes in this confusing world. So when we say here, this is what's bechinas emes, we're not saying this is a good way to have shmir salashon. It is. It is a good way to have shmir salashon of using our words properly and not saying things that are incorrect or saying things that are false. That's true too. But what we're really saying here, dibure emes, means diburim that are coming from the deepest part of your heart, that they just can't be not expressed. The place in which you're real, in which you're vulnerable, in which you're raw. That's what it means, dibure emes. Dibure emes is when we rip off facades of saying what we think should be said, or saying what we think someone wants to hear, and instead we could say what's burning in our heart. V'al yadam meir ha'emes badibor, and then you can have meir ha'emes badibor. The hainu beribua hadibor, within the 4 types of speech. Hainu b'chinas arba chelke hadibor, within the 4 aspects, categories of speech. And we're going to get into what those are. What we're going to say so far, we have the b'china of Kel, Elokim, and Shem Havaya, and those are keneged the 4 types of speech. Yesh ribua hadibor, because there are 4 aspects, 4 types of speech. Al kain shehayu Yisrael b'galus, and this is this week's parsha, right? Getting out of Mitzrayim. So when we were in galus, v'haya hadibor b'galus, and our speech was in galus, like the famous teaching, Pesach stands for Pesach. What was Pesach really about? The ability to communicate with each other, the ability to talk to each other. The ikar slavery is a slavery of dibor, of kotzer ruach, where you don't even have breath in which you can express yourself. That's a big slavery that still exists today, where you can have people that sit next to each other in shul and their relationship have never gotten past good Shabbos, hi, how are you? And it's never gotten past that. They've never managed to have diburei emes with each other. They've never managed to be real or vulnerable with one another. That's still a Mitzrayim. That's still a pgam in Pesach. It's still a pgam there. V'haya hadibor begalus, and dibor is in galus. Quite literally, dibor is in exile, where you can't speak and you can't express. Nemar b'Moshe lo ish devarim, and Moshe Rabbeinu said, "I'm not a man of words." Anoichi. So we're saying here, what is this pasuk? Lo ish devarim anoichi. I'm not a man of words. Gam mitmol. Also yesterday, gam shilshom. Also from the day before that, gam mi'az devarecha. Since you first spoke to your servant, meaning this alludes to 4 different types. Zebechinas ribua hadibor, arba chelke hadibor. 4 types. Again, let's read it again one more time. Lo ish devarim anoichi is the first. I'm not a man of words. Gam mitmol, not yesterday. Gam il shilshom, not from the day before. Gam mi'az devarecha, dibarecha, not since you've spoken to me. It's important to note that Moshe Rabbeinu only had a pgam in his dibor, only had a speech impediment when he was in Mitzrayim. Outside of Egypt, he was able to speak properly. Only in Mitzrayim did he have a problem with speaking. When he gave the Torah on Har Sinai, his speech was fixed. So what's the idea? It says there was an energy in Mitzrayim that stopped, that was a hindrance to Moshe Rabbeinu, someone who was so connected to Diburei Emes, that he couldn't even express himself there. So much so that even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't express himself when he was in Mitzrayim. Realize what a koach there was of sheker, which has one leg, and not being able to speak honestly and in a real way, so much so that even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't communicate properly in Mitzrayim. Kiyesh dibor shel tzedakah. Now we're going to go into different types of dibor. There's a dibor of tzedakah, a speech of charity. Bibchinas midaber b'tzedakah, like it says in the pasuk in Yeshaya, who speaks with charity. Now, what does it mean to speak with charity? It's a teaching that in the Midbar, we didn't have much of a need for money. We had the man, right? The man came down to our door. We had shelter, right? Aside for food and shelter, those are the main things people spend their money on. So what did we do for tzedakah? How did we give charity? It says, one of the ways we gave charity in the desert was with kind words. It says, not everybody always has $1 billion to donate a yeshiva in someone's name, right? But each and every one of us could have kind words to share to another person who needs them. And that tzedakah of kind words, dibur shel tzedakah, b'chinas midaber b'tzedakah from Yeshaya. This tzedakah doesn't matter if you have $1 in your pocket, doesn't matter if you have $1 billion. You can always give this form of tzedakah. This form of tzedakah, that you look around the world and you see who's a person who might need a little bit of chizuk right now, who's a person that, and when we say chizuk, I don't mean just giving a drasha. I mean, a chizuk could just be someone who needs a smile, someone who needs a pat on the back, someone who needs someone to notice them, right? That's midaber b'tzedakah. Look around and say, who's someone that might not be getting as much love and affection as they could be. Says that a person, what alludes to one of the main faculties that a person has over animals, speech. Shehu geder ha'adam. He says this is one of the classifications that specifies a human different from an animal. Hu b'chinat tzedakah is that we have the ability to do tzedakah, charity. Shehu gomel chesed im habrios shezeh geder ha'adam. What does it mean to be geder ha'adam? What does it mean to be a person, to be a human? It means to look around the world and say, how can I do chesed? How can I make things better? Not just how can I survive another day? Not do I just live on my instinctual desires to eat and to sleep and to take care of myself, but rather an idea of saying there's something lacking in the world, to be a partner with God in saying, how can I reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu's greatness in this world? And that's done through dibur. And that's a form of tzedakah. What's a form of tzedakah? It's not just, we view tzedakah in such a way sometimes of tzedakah is like a transactional action of giving money for a service, giving money to buy someone food for Shabbos. It's beautiful, we should do these things. But tzedakah is also the greatest tzedakah is to reveal God's light in the world. What's a greater tzedakah than making Torah and Pnimius HaTorah and God's light accessible to people? So he says, so this is what it means, that what's different within a person to an animal. Shedarko ligmal chesed, masha ein kenachai. What does it mean, Na'aseh Adam? We shall make people. It's a mission statement. Na'aseh Adam is not just Hashem saying, we're going to make a man, but it's saying, Na'aseh Adam, I'm going to make a man, and this man is going to spend his time helping other people. And this man is going to spend his time, his or her time, making the world more geshma, more beautiful, more holy. Mahasam tzedakah, afkan tzedakah. Saying, so this is the act of tzedakah. The act of giving is an act of tzedakah. Shal yedei tzedakah nikra adam. How do you get the shame adam? Obviously you're a person. But how do you live within the namesake that you have of being an adam? Is through tzedakah. Through looking in the world and saying, what is lacking? I think that's, if we were going to sum up what is tzedakah, it's saying, looking at the world through a world view of saying, where is there a lack and how can I fix that lack? Where is there someone that's hungry? Where is there someone that's tired? Where is there someone that's thirsty for Torah? Where is there someone that needs a friend? Whatever it might be. That's what it means to be living as an Adam. Ki tzedakah shemisham hadibur hu geder ha'adam. V'zeh b'chinas lo ish tevarim anochi. And this is what it meant when Moshe said, Lo ish tevarim anochi, hainu hadibur shel tzedakah. When he says, I'm not a man of words, it refers to charitable speech. B'bchinas tov ish chonen u'melava yichalkel devarav, dahainu gemilas chesed u'tzedakah. So Moshe was saying, I don't know if I'm the guy to find this need and to fulfill this need. When Moshe was saying, Lo ish devarim anoichi, he wasn't saying just, I can't put sentences together, even though he struggled with that. But really, what was Moshe Rabbeinu saying? I'm not the guy who's going to be able to find the needs of the Jewish people and fill their needs and fulfill what it is they're looking for. That's not me. I don't feel able to do that. I don't feel capable. What is it? He says, I'm an Orel Sfasayim. Orel Sfasayim is a little bit of a funny word, because an Orel usually refers to one who doesn't have a bris milah. Saying, my mouth has a pagam. There's a blockage. The Orla in general, it's referred to as a blockage from taking something physical to use it in a spiritual way. Blockage, a stoppage from being able to engage in physical spiritually. So he says, I'm an Orel Sfasayim. I don't know how to utilize my lips. I don't know how to use the koach of dibur that I have to elevate people. Maybe I can speak, maybe I could say words, but I can't do diburei tzedakah. This is fascinating. What is Moshe saying? I can't do diburei tzedakah. I can't use my koach of dibur to help these people to find what it is they need and to elevate their needs. I can't do it. Hashem say, you think you're an Arel Sfasayim? You think you're an Arel Sfasayim? You think you have such a pagam in your dibur? Who made you that way? So Hashem's answer. If I made you with that struggle, then I gave you all of the capabilities that you need to overcome that struggle. Saying to Moshe, just because you struggle, it's a gavaldic teaching. Just because you struggle doesn't mean you can't do it. Moshe Rabbeinu was expecting, if I'm going to be able to do diburei tzedakah, then what does it mean? It means it must come perfectly natural. Moshe's expecting, it's almost like a pagam of perfectionism here. Where Moshe is saying, unless I can perfectly speak off the get-go, I don't want to bother. Because it's obviously not for me. The leadership is meant for those that are perfect, that aren't an Arel Sfasayim, that don't have a blockage of some sort, that don't have a hindrance, a klipa. And what does Hashem say? Who gave you that klipa? Who gave you that struggle? How much do we have to remind ourselves of this when we say we're an Arel something or another? Whether it's an Arel Sfasayim or whether it's an Arel whatever struggle it is we're having. And we say, I'm just an Arel Sfasayim, count me out. Take me out of the game. I'm not the guy. What does Hashem say? Who made you that way? Who gave you that struggle? Who gave you that taiva? Who gave you that desire to do something against my ratzon? It's crazy. Hashem saying, who gave you the desire to do something against my ratzon? I did. So gewalt. So it's yours for the taking. It's yours to fix. It's yours to improve. That's what he says to Moshe. V'yesh dibur shel tshuva. Okay, so that was dibur shel tzedakah. Now we're going to talk about a dibur shel tshuva. What does it mean, a words of tshuva? Being able to use speech as a way of returning. V'bchinas kichu imachem devarim. Take, what is devarim? Things, but it also means words. Kichu imachem devarim. Take your words. V'shuvu el Hashem, and return to God. V'zeh b'chinas gam mitmol. And this is when Moshe said gam mitmol also yesterday. V'bchinas dibur shel tshuva. This is referring to a dibur, words of tshuva. K'moshe kasav v'taymer shuvu b'nei adam ki elef shanim be'inecha ki yam etmol. Like you said, returning, right? Tshuva, returning. Ki elef shanim be'inecha ki yom etmol. So there's a gzeir shava between the words, similarity of lashon. Words, using words as a way to return. Using your words, using your ability to speech, your ability to talk as a way to return to the innermost state of purity that we all have within us. V'yesh dibur shel ashirus. And there's also what's called a dibur of ashirus, of wealth, of riches. Dahainu ashirim keruvim lemalchus, because ashirim are close to malchus, is an aspect of kingship when it comes to wealth and affluence. Shehem bechinas shloshes hasarigim. When we said the three tendrils. Now what are we talking about here? Like vines. V'darsha Rabbeinu zecharim levracha shlosha sarei geim. When we say sarigim, it means sarei geim. Three prominent officials. Dahainu ashirim keruvim lemalchus. So what are we saying here? Diburim shel ashirus. Sheyesh lahem bechinas dibur. Because they have the aspect of dibur, b'bchinas chen sefasav reu melech. His speech is gracious to the king. Hainu adibur shel kroivim l'malchus. V'zeh b'chinas gamil shilsham b'chinas shloishes asarigim anal. Hainu adibur shel Ashim Krovim Malchus. We have to say, what is Malchus? When we say kingship, we're not just referring to an idea of a Malchus, of a king of a country. When we say Malchus, what are we referring to? What do we mean when we say kingship? When we say kingship, we're referring to God's kingship of the world. Malchus in general is the way in which everything flows through into the world. It's the way in which we interpret and relate to God's kingship in this world. So we say Ashirus, say Aisher v'achavod milfanecha. There's sometimes an unhealthy relationship towards Ashirus, where the unhealthy relationship towards Ashirus could be a pursuit of money and wealth for the sake of wealth, as opposed to a pursuit of money or wealth as a way to elevate. Like it says about Rav Yehuda Nasi. It says Rav Yehuda Nasi was Eino Nenem Olam Hazeh. It also said he had every delicacy, he had every good thing. It's like a Rishner. Yehuda Nasi, it's a joke, but is Rishon and Rav Yehuda Nasi, there's connections. So a relationship to Olam Hazeh from a place of Malchus, of deep Malchus, is saying, you cut through the noise of saying Gashmias for the sake of Gashmias, but instead it's just a reflection of how Hashem is the king in the world. When you see nice things, when you see riches, when you see valuable things, it's a sign of Tovli Torah's picha mi'alfei zahav v'kesef, meaning what? The Torah picha of your mouth is more valuable than gold and silver. It's more valuable than jewels. How is it more valuable than jewels? Because those jewels are only a glimpse, a reflection of God's Malchus to begin with. They're not valuable, and they are technically valuable if you would sell them, but they're not truly valuable. What makes something valuable is that it's a reflection of Hashem's Malchus in the world. So what makes a diamond valuable? Because we attribute value to a diamond, so therefore it's a reflection in some way of God's Malchus. V'yesh dibur shel Malchus, b'chinas Malchus power. What does it mean? Kingship of the mouth. V'zeh b'chinas gam mi'az diburecha, b'chinas nachan kisacha mi'az. Your throne stands firm from there. Okay, so let's recap these 4 different types. We said, I'm not a man of words. That's referring to tzedakah, speech of tzedakah. Also, not since yesterday is talking about tshuva, looking back. Where was I yesterday? That's an aspect of tshuva, returning. Also, not since the day before yesterday. It's talking about ashirus. Also, not since you first spoke to your servant is malchus. Those are the 4 bechinas, and we'll see how they all get pulled in together. Va'emes meir b'yirbuah dibor, and emes lights up, unfolds within this ribuah hadibor, ayidei shlosha shemos, through the 3 names that we've mentioned: Shehem, Kel, Elokim, and Hashem. Shehem bechinas tefillah, Torah, shidduchim, v'zivugim, which contain within these aspects of tefillah, Torah, shidduchim, and zivugim. Kel is a bechinas tefillah. So how is the name Kel corresponding to tefillah? Ki Kel al shem hakoach. Kel, when we say the name Kel, we're referring to strength. Shu teikef ubal hayecholes, that Hashem is strong and can do anything. That's what the name Kel channels. Meaning, each name of God represents a different aspect of God. God is all-encompassing, but it represents a different aspect in which we relate to God. Ayidei tefillah nikram Yisrael b'shem Kel. So through tefillah, we are referred to as Kel. Bibchinas, minayin shekaru HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yaakov Kel, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem referred to Yaakov as Kel, v'yikra lo Kel. He called him Kel, meaning what? Not that he was calling him God, but it was a reference to his strength. Why? Ki al yidei hatfilah, and this is a very important teaching. Through tefillah, kiviyachol anu lochim la'atzmeinu hakoach mimeno yisparach. It's as if we steal God's power. We don't, but it's as if we do. How so? Ki anu mevatlim gezeirosav. Because through tefillah, we are mevatel. We destroy, we nullify any negative decree. Nimtza sheyesh lanu hakoach. We have the strength, we have the ability. When you go up to a tefillah, when you go up to daven and you're davening for something, you should feel like you have a sword in your hand and you're ready for battle. You can cut away anything negative. That through davening, why is it called tefillah? Kel is called tefillah because we refer to as kel when we were davening. HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes there, b'tzadik mekayim. That Hashem institutes something, says something's going to happen, but through our tefillah we stop it. Through our tefillah, we can nullify it. It's big. It's big. It's big teaching. Big teaching of davening for others. We should always be davening for others. We should daven for ourselves. We should daven for others. We should daven for... Don't just leave it to say this is something for big tzaddikim to do. Don't just say this is for other people to do. Spend your time, really. Spend your time when you know someone is going through something. Spend your time davening for Lo ish kel vayachsev. Says kel is not a man that he should be false. Lo ishu sha'asa divrei al kichsav, that he made the words as if they were false. Ki al yidei atfilah mevatlim gezeiros of yisparach. Through tefillah, we could be mevatel gezeiros. And there's so many stories about different tzaddikim that through their prayer were able to be mevatel the biggest gezeiros. Something for us to really draw into ourselves and say, in a situation, tefillah is a real weapon. Va'azi Yisrael nikra in kel. And therefore, Yisrael, the Jewish people, are referred to as kel. Umisham meir hadibor. And through that shines the light of dibor. B'bchinas ugvurosav yidaberu. Because of your might they will speak. Dahainu ayidei koach hagvura. Ugvura shezeh b'chinas kel al shem hakoach. And this is the name of strength. Meir hadibor ayidei ha'emes. And then comes diborei emes. And like we said, diborei emes is what? Diborei emes is not just saying truthful speech. It's saying vulnerable, real speech. It's like saying, Rachmana liba bai, Hashem wants your heart. What does it mean Hashem wants your heart? People often understand that to mean Hashem wants you to be heartzig, wants you to be lively, be real. But Rachmana liba bai, the way I've always understood this, means Hashem wants your heart, meaning He wants you to serve Him from the exact place that you're in at this moment. From the place that you're in. You're joyful, serve God with joy. You're sad, serve God with sadness. You should strive to be in joy, right? We should always try to be in joy. But Rachmana liba bai means Hashem wants you from the exact place that you're in. You think that the place that you're in right now, spiritually, emotionally, physically, whatever it might be, the place that you're in right now, Hashem wants you to be close to Him from there too. From a place of confusion, from a place of pain, from a place of turmoil, it doesn't matter, from a place of anxiety. Rachmana liba bai, Hashem wants your heart from the exact place that you're in at this moment. That's Diburei Emes. Rav Nachman even said, I think it's in Koich HaVe'or, where he says, Nachon sha'atem anashim ksheirim, aval loy lezoy saisa kavanasi. Fascinating teaching, it's a trip. He says, true, you guys are all kosher, you're good, stand-up individuals. That wasn't my intention. That wasn't my intention. What was my intention? Ritziti shetiyu, I wanted you to be, right? There's a beautiful song from this. Ritziti shetiyu, kichayos hanaamos bayar leilo shleimim. I wanted you to be like animals, howling. I wanted you to be like howling animals all night. What does this mean? What is Rav Nachman saying? I wanted you to be like animals. I wanted you to be raw. I wanted you to be real. So much so that it's almost like the way that we daven, the way that we relate to Hashem should be from such a place inside of us that it's almost like a guttural, instinctual yell that we can't not say. That's Diburei Emes. That's what we're talking about, Diburei Emes. Not saying the truth, that's a given. Saying the truth is obvious. Talking here about Kichayos Hanoamos Bayar, to be raw. K'moshe Kasav Karav Hashem, L'chol Asher Yikru B'emes. How do you draw close to Hashem? Like this. This is how you draw close to the Eibishter. How do you bring your closeness to Hashem into consciousness? By being raw and by being vulnerable, not falling into the pagam of I need to be professional, I need to be this. No, by being real, by being vulnerable. Elokim zebechinas Torah. And we say the name Elokim is like Torah. K'moshe Kasav, va'ata tiyeh lo le'Elokim. And you're going to be. What does it mean? Elokim zebechinas Torah. Va'ata tiyeh lo le'Elokim. And you will be for Him an Elokim. V'targumo l'Rav. It's saying here as a Rav. We're talking here about Moshe. We're talking about Aaron and Moshe and the way that they would work together. And He will be your mouth. Aaron and Moshe, a great synergy, not having jealousy towards each other, each respecting each other's role. So Moshe would be like an Elohim, like a Elohim rather, meaning because it's not God, but rather you will be like a Rav, a guide to him. And Aaron will be a peh. He will be the one who helps you speak. Because Torah gives light and gives the ability to the peh, to the mouth to speak. So, because the Rav's job is to give guidance in Torah to his students. If you extract the precious from the vial, you will be like my mouth. So Torah, that is emes, is coming out of the mouth. So Elokim is Torah. So Kel, we said so far, is what? Kel is Tefillah. Because through our koach of Tefillah, we make things happen in the world. We make things happen. Elokim is Torah. It refers to Moshe Rabbeinu as being an Elohim for Aaron, of being a leader, being a Rav, a guide for Aaron. It says that Torah's emes haisa b'piyu. And that's Torah. So to bring out the side of Elokim, that is through Torah.